Welcome to the Library of Congress. Please ensure that your cell phones are silent as we begin our program. Please join me in welcoming Destinee Hodge, bookseller at East City Bookshop and book club maven, moderating Love is a Renaissance with Isabel Ibañez and RaShonda Tate.
Hello. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to speak with these two amazing authors tonight. So I'll go ahead and introduce them. First, we have Isabel Ibañez, who is the author of Together We Burn and Woven in Moonlight, a finalist for the William C. Morris Award, and is listed among Time Magazine's 100 best fantasy books of all time. She's the proud daughter of Bolivian immigrants and has a profound appreciation for history and traveling. She'll be discussing today her newest book, Graceless Heart. RaShonda Tate is the national best-selling author of more than 53 books. I know, we were just yapping about that backstage. Including both adult and teen fiction as well as nonfiction. Her novels, Let the Church Say Amen and The Secret She Kept, were adapted into films. A motivational speaker and award-winning event planner. Please join me in welcoming both Isabel Ibañez and RaShonda Tate.
$53 books?
54.
54.
54. Woo! Oh my gosh, that is incredible. And we are so glad to be speaking with you today. So I would love to just start off by having both of you tell us a little bit about your books. And we can start with you, RaShonda.
So my latest book with Love From Harlem is a story of Hazel Scott. Now, Hazel Scott was a prodigy. She was a civil rights pioneer. She was actually the first black person at all to have her own nationally syndicated talk show. And I didn't know much about her until I started researching her. So it is about her life, her love. She was married to Adam Clayton Powell Jr., and it is a story of what happens when two stars align. One of them is bound to dim, and it is usually the woman who dims her light. And so it is her story. It is full of Billie Holiday, James Baldwin, Langston Hughes. So I had such a ball going back in time to tell their stories.
That sounds awesome. I like it. So Graceless Heart is a historical fantasy set in Renaissance Italy in 1478. It's about a sculptress. Her name is Ravenna, and she's living in Volterra. And at the time, Volterra is occupied by the Medici family, and no one in Volterra likes this at all. And when her brother gets arrested, she quickly learns that the only way to save her brother is to enter into this contest that's being put on by a secretive, immortal family who has ties to the Medici family. And when she enters the contest, the only way she can win is to reveal her secret that no one knows except for her family, and it's that she can do magic. And once she wins the contest, this loony family, the immortal family who put on the contest, takes her from Volterra, takes her to Florence, where she has to do a dangerous task, and if she were to fail, the heir to the immortal family is assigned to kill her.
I'm like, did you make all that up?
Yes, it's in here. It's in here.
I want you to imagine my experience reading these back to back. And I think on first inspection, other than Renaissance, right, being the overlap, you might think, oh, there's not going to be much else that's similar. But there were so many ways in which they overlapped, which I found to be incredible. So I would love to start off by finding out from you all, with our panel being called Love is a Renaissance. What does that phrase mean to you in the context of your novels?
So for me, love is more than romance in this book. It's a rebirth. It is finding yourself and who you deserve to be, stepping up to that. So it's also about love beyond a relationship. It's not just her love for Adam Clayton Powell Jr. It is also her love for her craft, her love for her people, for her freedom, and for her community. Harlem is a character in this book, but it is about finding yourself and finding the love to dream.
I want to react to everything that you say. I'm like, that's cool. Tell me more. So the main character, Ravenna, at the very start of this book, she believes this awful lie about herself and that she is unlovable. And she has this secret that is so shameful, and it is a secret that brings could potentially bring a lot of death to her family's home, right to her front door. And she is so ashamed of it, and so she really believes this lie about herself that she is unlovable. And throughout the course of the book, she is going to learn facets about herself that challenge her and have a rebirth in thinking, okay, this is something that is true about me. There's no longer any need to be ashamed about it, but how am I going to be in this world and survive in this world? And through the whole journey of the book, it feels like she's crossing this political checkerboard and is just trying to make it to the very end as completely herself, out in the open, and reclaiming everything that she is and not believing this lie about herself anymore.
Wow, I could listen to you guys talk about this for a long time. So by definition, Renaissance is rebirth. And I think that, at least for me, I think of it as transition into something else. But also in both of your books, I feel like we see how a love that is in some ways either forbidden or troublesome, problematic in some cases, is also a way of transformation and has an impact on those characters. So I'm curious for you all, what impact do you think the love that you talked about and the love that we know happens in your book has on your characters and their life and their motivations?
Yeah, so Hazel, actually, her life shifted when she fell in love. So just a little backstory, she was performing. She was already a big celebrity, and Adam Clayton Powell Jr. came to watch her perform at Cafe Society and instantly fell in love with her. It didn't matter that his wife was sitting on the side of him. And he pursued her relentlessly. And she was 22 years old, but she said, no, you're married. But he pursued her, and he made her fall in love with him. And that shifted her world. He ended up leaving his wife to marry her 10 days after he left his wife. And so, I didn't know this little nugget when I first started writing this book. I just knew about her, and I researched it. And when I discovered that, I actually didn't like her anymore. I was really mad at Hazel, but I had already spent my advance money. So I had to figure out how to like her. I had to figure out how to love her. And I reminded myself that she was 22 years old. And at 22, we do a lot of things in the name of love that later on in life we might not actually be proud of. And so it was a matter of she fell in love and her life shifted, the trajectory shifted. And then when she learned to love herself more, the balance of everything in her life shifted back.
I think for Ravenna, I don't know how she could have felt any kind of love that wasn't uncomfortable. She has this secret, and her parents love her, but they're afraid of her and for her. She doesn't have a ton of close friends who know like her love of sculpting, which she also does in secret, because back then this was something that she wasn't going to be accepted over. She wasn't able to do this talent that she had out in the open. She wasn't able to sell or make a profit out of the work that she was doing. And so here she is wrestling on every facet. How am I loved? Am I loved? And so when she meets the heir to this immortal family, his name is Saturnino. It is a villain romance, just wanted to let you know. And he is tasked to kill her if she fails in this, in this work that she has to do when she arrives in Florence. And I think for her, she starts learning how to be fully known, by another human being, another person, and then to also know another person. I think that she starts discovering the full impact and beauty of love, and it takes the whole course of the book for her to move through all the facets of that. And then for Saturnino, he's immortal. And early on in his existence, he has a terrible experience with humanity, and he comes away from that with a bad taste in his mouth. And he's like, I am never showing any kind of emotion ever again. I am never letting anybody touch me in any meaningful way. I don't want anyone to be close to me. I'm closed off. And then he meets Ravenna, and I think it scares him so much because for the first time, he's feeling all of this, uncertainty and fear because love is really scary. It demands you to be vulnerable and to be fully present and to be gracious and have empathy, but also it's a two-way street, so you have to reveal those things about yourself, So the two of them go through quite a, they're confronted by how scary it is and what they could be on the other side of it.
Yeah, and now I'm sure you all are seeing the overlap situation of both characters coming in to love, but with either pressure or with fear.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting to read, both back to back and just be thinking about. Another thing that I want to ask you is about, yes, it's a research question, but I'm just curious where, in your case, Hazel Scott was a person who existed, and you were essentially fictionalizing some things, and then in your case, you're picking which things you want to add to this backdrop. What was that like for you with writing and researching?
Yeah, so for me, part of my biggest problem, my challenge in writing this book was the research, because I would go down rabbit holes. I would find another little nugget, and then I'm off chasing like a little dog gone in its opposite direction. And a friend of mine actually said, "Can you stop researching the book and write the book?" Because I spent 3.5 years in research. It was just fascinating, all the things that I was finding. And so I found her unpublished autobiography in the Library of Congress, and I actually was just enthralled with it. But she sugarcoated a whole lot. And so she would drop little hints. I love this young man in Paris. He was 13 years my junior, and she would never name him. So now I got to find him. And imagine when I find him and I find out it's Quincy Jones. So now I'm down another rabbit hole. I have to go read all his stuff. And so it was just so, I loved it. I read all of their autobiographies from Billie Holiday to Adam Clayton Powell Jr. And so that, I probably did too much research. I also read a lot of love letters. I felt some kind of way. I would be sitting there reading these going, I am sure that she did not think 100 years from now some nosy woman would be sitting in the Library of Congress reading my personal thoughts. But I would just be like sipping my tea, drinking, taking in everything. But it was so enlightening for me. I told my kids, burn everything. When I pass, before you plan the funeral, burn everything. I take it out the cloud, delete, because somebody in 100 years is going to come digging up all the dirt. And it really was, I was able to get insight into her feelings, her love-hate relationship for Adam, and really just into their world, into her mind because of those personal letters.
Can I just interject, shout out Library of Congress?
Yes,
right?
yes,
You're
absolutely.
in here doing your research.
Yeah.
I want to do research here. I think it would be so much fun. I did a ton of research. I think that the way that I write, it looks like a movie in my head. And being able to go to Florence and being able to walk the same streets that Ravenna would have walked, and we stayed in, different places, but did tours, and I had a guide, and I loved it. But the thing that I really enjoyed the most about doing the research, just for the setting and bringing it to life, I found a sculptor who allowed me into his studio, and it's at the very bottom of a palazzo. And he went in and he shows me all of this beautiful sculpture. And Ravenna is a sculptress. And I have never sculpted in my life. And he looks at me, he's like, do you want to try? And I said, yes, I would love to try. And he takes me over, and it was an actual commissioned piece that he was selling to somebody. And he gives me a chisel, and he's like, have at it. And I thought that I was going to destroy this thing with one blow. managed to chip off like the littlest bit. But the thing that it taught me about this is that for Ravenna, she was originally, in my mind, I had thought that she was going to be a painter, but I ended up making her a sculptress because it fit her personality. And it wasn't until I was actually in Florence trying to hack at this marble and not making any progress, I realized how strong that she had to be and how meticulous she had to be, and also the capacity of, I'm going to say this, the capacity for boredom, to do the same thing over and over again, and the persistence to do that. I learned so much about her personality and her character, because here she is moving into Florence, and the political landscape at this time is just treacherous. People are backstabbing each other, it's cutthroat, there's bargains being made, betrayals left and right, and she has no idea who is who and who she can trust. And I just loved this idea of her perseverance and dedication in trying to stay alive and navigate and carving her own fate with her own hands, irrespective of what everybody else is doing on this checkerboard.
So wait, your husband took you to Florence for research?
I took my husband to Florence for research.
Oh, okay. All right. See,
Yes.
part of my book takes place in Paris, and when I asked my husband to take me for research, he told me go to the Library of Congress.
Are we not in Paris right now? So kind of to this, you were getting into her art.
Yes.
As a sculptress right
Yes.
now. And I think that that's a great segue to a question I have, which is, for both of you, how does art function as power in your story? Is your main character, do you feel like they're empowered by their art? Do you feel like they're endangered by their art? Both?
Hazel was definitely empowered by her art. She was so talented. So for those that don't know, Hazel Scott is a woman that plays two pianos. If you've ever seen them, she plays classical on one piano and jazz on the other. So she was extremely talented. She was also an actress at the time. And she was a very well-paid actress, and she was well respected. She had in her contract that she would not perform before segregated audiences. So if she walked in somewhere to perform and the audience was segregated, not only would she leave, she'd take the money and leave. And for a
really
black woman,
like her.
For a black woman in 1940s and 50s to do that, it was monumental, but they allowed her to get away with it because of her art. And so she used it to her advantage. She was blacklisted in Hollywood because she stood up for some other black actresses and how they were portrayed. She didn't have to, because she was portrayed as a beautiful woman in the movie. She got a lot of money, but she was their voice. And so she used her art as activism. And that's actually what drew Adam to her, and vice versa.
Wow, I really like her.
Yeah.
I want to read your book. So Ravenna is a sculptress, and I think the power for her comes with, during this time period in the Renaissance, it's a reawakening, right? We are coming out of the Dark Ages. We're asking questions. There's innovation. There's science, medicine. It's an exciting time for humanity. And it's also gate-kept. Women are not allowed. And so for Ravenna, she develops this talent and skill set that she does and performs it in secret, privately. And later on, she has this magical ability, and it works in conjunction with her skill as a sculptress. Later, all of these powerful men want to use her ability. They want it for their own purposes. They need her. She's essential to their plans, and eventually she will have to come to terms with using her ability and her strength and an acceptance of who she is to be able to combat the whims and aims of all these powerful men who are literally flanking her on every side. So she reclaims her magic, herself, and this beautiful art that she does, all on her own.
I'm sure you're seeing what I'm talking about, which is like there are so many similarities in despite the different eras in which they're set. I think I am wondering, in the cases of both of your main characters, do you think with a partner who is keeping secrets, doing all these things that you're not really sure what's going on, do you think it was braver to demand the truth, or to decide that they didn't want to hear it?
Oh, definitely to demand the truth, because you can live in silence and in your own perfect little world while the world is crashing around you. That's the easy way out. Demanding the truth is the hard way, because then you have to make a decision on what you're going to do with that truth.
Yes, 100%. No, but how can you can have no sense of what you're going to do next without all of the information. And that includes about yourself. It includes about a potential partner, a situation, and what have you. And again, I think in this time period, women were given so little spaces. They were not given a voice. Everywhere they went, they were escorted. They had a chaperone. They couldn't even be alone out in the world. And so I think demanding the truth was paramount.
Where do you think ambition comes into play for both of your characters' choices? Because I think, like reading on a surface level, you could see so many things that happen to them. And it's not necessarily framed as what they want. So how do you feel like ambition played a role in some of the choices that they made?
Well, for Hazel, her ambition, she was very ambitious when she and Adam got together. But what happens is when two stars align, one of them is bound to dim. And Hazel allowed her light to dim so that her husband could shine. And one of the things that was happening with her is she wasn't happy, because she had just shrunk. She made sure she just shrunk so that he could rise. And we often see that. And what was the question? Look, I'm old. I'm getting old.
Like, how do you think that ambition that I agree that she does have, how does that impact her choices? Even when, it's like Adam's doing I'll speak for you. How do you feel like that played a role, her internal, drive?
Yeah, so she allowed his ambition to override hers. That's where I was going, is she really did. She took a back seat because he would get angry. Somebody would call him Mr. Scott, and he would get furious. And it's not her fault, but she would take on that of always trying to make sure that his ego was massaged.
Mm. I think for Ravenna, at least at the beginning of the book, everything is about survival for her. She's in Volterra, she's living a much quieter life, and when she gets dragged to Florence, suddenly she is the pet of this immortal family who is in cahoots with the Medici, who all but run Florence in name. And so her whole world and landscape changes. I don't know if she ever had really the luxury of even being ambitious, or what it could look like in her life, or what she can reach for or dream for. And I think it was about survival. And it wasn't until she's partway through this adventure that she goes on that she starts realizing she could ask for more, demand for more, and she also starts using all of the skill sets and experience living her quiet life in Volterra, and she starts using it to outsmart the men who are wanting something from her. So she out-negotiates them, out-talks them by the end of it. I don't know if I would call it ambition as much as a really strong sense of survival. And maybe it's the same thing. It could be read that way, maybe.
Food for thought. Okay, our time is winding down, and I will not leave this stage without us doing a this or that. So I'm going to just ask you a few scenarios for your characters and which thing or scenario you think they would choose. So if Ravenna or Hazel could have the opportunity to work on a passion project or on a commissioned art piece, or something that's more directed by someone else, what do you think they would choose?
Yeah, she would definitely do a passion project.
Okay.
Yeah. Passion project. I think she would want to have some kind of statue finally somewhere in some main square so everybody could see what she could do.
Okay. Do you think that either of them are more driven or feel more rewarded by public recognition or private fulfillment?
It would appear that she's more by public recognition, but that was just a price she paid for her talent. Her happiest moments came in the privacy of her own home. She was this glamorous star out in public, but at home you would always find her in bobby socks and a scarf on her head, and that's where she got her greatest joy.
I think that because she had to work so much in secret, and obviously she loved it. She was enjoying herself and doing it, but then the minute that she could bring out her talent out in the open, I think she would have gotten so much satisfaction and pride in being able to share her art. So I'm going to go with the latter.
Ooh, see, I feel like I'm learning even more about them. Do you think if they had to choose between protecting their art or protecting their love, I know, which would they choose if it came down to it?
I think she would protect love, because I think it would, if she does that, I think it will enable her to continue to create art.
Since she didn't have much luck in love, she would protect her art. The 22-year-old Hazel would have tried to protect love, but the 50-year-old Hazel would have been like art all the way.
I definitely see that. Yeah, by the end, she was like, run me my coin, and that is it. Okay, if they could either erase one mistake or relive one glorious moment, what do you think they would do?
She would definitely go back to Cafe Society and run the other way when
Amen.
Adam came and approached her.
Man, I don't know.
That's a hard one.
It is a hard one. I think that the biggest mistake that she thinks that she makes is revealing her secret, that she can do magic. I don't think that she'd regret it, so I think she would pick the relive a glorious moment.
Okay, and the last one before my final question is, if they had to choose between lasting love or enduring legacy, I know. What do you think they would pick?
Surprisingly, she would pick love. She wanted love. She just was unlucky in love. And so I think that's what she was always searching. There's so much that ended up on the cutting room floor. Several of her other attempts at love. And that was something she chased all of her life. She just never could get it. So she would definitely want a lasting love. She did have that, if we look beyond a relationship, her relationship with her son, Skipper, she did have that, and that's what brought her biggest joy.
I'm going to say lasting love. I don't know if it's because I'm a romantic and I love love, but I'm deciding this one for her. She's going to pick lasting love.
Ravenna's like, I want my sculpture. Okay, and the last question before we go to audience questions, so start thinking about what you might want to hear from the authors. I would like to know, what do you think Ravenna and Hazel Scott can teach us about navigating difficult circumstances? What do you think they would say based on the lives that they lived, even though, this is a fictionalized version, this is a fantasy romance? What do you think their takeaway would be?
So Hazel talked to me throughout this process. My mother says I need to stop telling people that because I sound crazy, but she did, and it would really be that your voice is the best power that you can have. And so the takeaway that she would want people to take away from her is use your voice for something. And that's what she did, no matter what the cost. Be willing to speak up and speak out.
I think she would say that if the lie that she believes about herself is that she's just not lovable, I think that she would want, and by the end, she learns that she is, but I think that she's also looking out into her fellow man and thinking, your story matters, your life matters, your voice matters, we all matter. Let's try and do something good with it.
Wow, I feel like we can learn a lot from both of them. So now we have an opportunity for you all to ask any questions you might have for the authors. There's a mic right over here, and there's a mic right over here if you want to hop on up.
We're really nice.
And I came from Houston, so don't have me come all the way here and nobody ask a question.
Okay, we'll start over here. Lady in the headband.
For both of you guys, what's your favorite book and why?
Ooh,
very good question.
Nice.
But that's, for me, that's like asking which one of your children do you like the best? Now, my daughters would say her son. She likes her son the best. But for me, it really is this, with Love from Harlem, it is the last one, because I'm a journalist by trade. And this allowed me to merge the best of both worlds. I lay the foundation with facts. Everything in this book, the foundation is facts. And then the fiction comes in filling in the blanks. And so for me, that is the best of both worlds. I get to utilize my research and my journalism talents and then couple it with that active imagination of mine. I've always had an active imagination. Since I was a little girl, my mother called it lying. But for me, I love making up stories.
I love Graceless Heart. I love it. But I think my favorite of mine is What the River Knows. And the reason why is when I was 7, I wanted to be an Egyptologist, but I learned that I don't like sand. So that wasn't going to work out for me. But for What the River Knows, I took my husband to Egypt for
Egypt,
for 3 weeks. We went to Egypt, and it was, I can't even describe to you. I felt like I was that 7-year-old girl again, standing in front of the pyramids, and I was weepy the whole time. I think the whole time, just giddy by being there, and I think for that reason.
Hold on while I call my husband.
We'll hop over to you.
I'm curious, as the two of you are crafting your characters and your protagonists are women, do you feel torn, and is there a challenge with developing their characters to have them show weakness or flaws or foibles, because you are writing for a particular audience, you are presenting a feminist view, a strong female view. How do you reconcile that and go about that as your writing craft?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so it was a challenge for me because I showed the good, the bad, and the ugly of both Hazel and Adam Clayton Powell and Billie Holiday in this book. With Adam Clayton Powell Jr., he is a very prominent civil rights leader. He is very well known, an icon in the Black community. So there is this thing in the Black community where a lot of our elders are like, my mother, for example, she will always say, you better not say anything bad about Barack Obama or Tyler Perry. I don't know how Tyler got in there, but it's because... But it's because they don't want you to say anything bad about our leaders. And so I wrestled with that because here I'm about to paint this picture of these flawed individuals, particularly the women. But Hazel said to me, if you're going to tell my story, tell it all. And if you're going to present a raw and relatable character that people can relate to, you have to show the flaws in all.
Yeah. Especially in crafting characters, the very first question that I ask myself is, what's their ghost? We all have one. We all have past wounds. We have trauma on some level. We have experiences that shaped us, formed us. And with any character, my hope would be that you would recognize some facet of them, even in a fantasy world, that you can look at that person and think, man, I have struggled with that, or I have wrestled with that. I have been afraid of that. I have not loved myself enough. I have, what have you. And it is creating a character from top to bottom, and it starts with their wounds. It starts with their ghosts. And I think also in story, as we're writing about people, we want to show them how they would navigate difficult situations, how they do rise, even in the face of oppression or grief and tragedy. And I'm hoping that it will be a friend that you meet that will be alongside you as you're navigating your own stuff in your life.
Hello. Ms. Tate, I would love to hang out with you and do drinks at some point because you are fabulous. As I'm sure we have probably more than a few people who are writers, you give lovely answers regarding craft specifically, but for those who are pursuing publication, what suggestions and advice do you have for those to keep through the very, very long, at times burdening slog of writing and then the business side of the business?
Yeah, the business side is difficult. I wish that you could still say, if you write it, they will come. No, they're on TikTok, so they're not coming. And you know, the difficult thing is you have to go in understanding that marketing is part of what you have to do in order to move your books. Once you have the book finished, because that is a big part with writers. I can't tell you the number of people that will come up and say, how do I get my book published? And I'll say, you know, what is it about? I haven't written it yet, but how do I get it published? And so once the book is finished, then it's about getting it in front of the right people. So for me, I self-published my first book. And I could not get a book deal. And so it was rejected, so I self-published it. And then I set out to spread the word about my book. I was in Oklahoma City at the time, and I would call a bookstore in New York and say, hi, do you carry My Brother's Keeper by RaShonda Tate Billingsley? That's the name I wrote on there. They said, nope, we don't have it, never heard of it. I would call back about noon and say, hi, do you carry this book called My Brother's Keeper? They'd say, nope, we don't have it. No joke, right before closing, I would call and say, I'm looking for a book called My Brother's Keeper. And they said, we don't have it, but we need to get it because everybody's calling about this book. And so you really do. You have to think outside the box on how to get interest in your book.
Can we get coffee? Wow, how do I follow that? Okay, here's what I would say. Publishing is a very big machine. And unfortunately, this machine likes to say no a lot, on every level. Rejections, what I did to get published was I did as much homework, research on literary agents. I did different houses, imprints, what they represent, what books have been successful. I did a ton of homework. And honestly, I'm a researcher at heart, and I loved this part of it. But I tried to do as much as I could to take away why they would say no. Every opportunity for no, I wanted it to be a yes. And I want you to know that I sent out 100 query letters. 89 of them were no's. Rejected 89 times. Brutal. Yes, but I learned at every level how to write a query letter, which agent is going to be a great fit for my book. I went online, I read blogs, I found a writing community, so that way I didn't feel so alone or crazy doing this thing that I loved so much, but I got 89 no's, you know, so that's what I would say. Community is so important, yes. Make a friend.
Good luck to you.
I'm already published.
But it's for well, good luck to somebody in this room that needs to hear that, yes.
Hi, first of all, I respect the hustle. I used to work at a public library, and whenever I needed a book immediately, I'm just requesting it to make sure that I'm the first one in line so I can read it. So I get on the calling about a book over and over again. I've been there. I had a little bit of a question because it's been covered about the types of love, and then also in the this or that, I really like the question about lasting love or a legacy. For your characters or other characters as well, I had a question about the struggle finding that balance of like wanting to find that love in someone else, a partner, but also not losing yourself to that, because I'm a hopeless romantic and also a victim of divine rivals. Oh my goodness. Yep. So I was wondering about, for your characters or for the research that you found, if you ever found that struggle between, you know, wanting to be loved and also loving yourself.
I have found that the right person will celebrate what you're good at. And whatever ambition, passion, interest, talents that you have, that wrestling almost becomes non-existent with the right person. They won't want to take that away from you or speak louder than you. They will want you to have your moment in the sun. And I try to fit that person in my books and in real life too. We all need cheerleaders.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. Hazel's biggest issue was she had someone trying to shine as bright as her. You need someone that will hold the umbrella to give you some shade because you're shining so bright. And so it really is a matter of finding that person that will hold your umbrella. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm from Texas too. So.
Oh, wonderful.
But with writing about like real people, how do you capture what you're trying to say in your book while still like keeping who they were as a person?
So real life people have enough real life drama. And so I actually cut out a lot of things that she went through. I didn't have to make up anything for the book. What I made up were the conversations. So I know that, you know, he left his wife in Martha's Vineyard to marry Hazel Scott. I don't know the curse words his wife used when she came back home. So that's where my imagination comes in. But there is enough foundation information out there that you can do that. And I don't change anything, any facts. So I'm not going to give her an extra relationship. I'm going to take creative liberties with ages and timelines, but I don't change any of the facts and the foundations of her story. Because her son is still alive. People ask me, did I talk to him? I did not, because when you're writing historical fiction, you don't want to talk to family members because it's like me coming and saying, I'm going to write a book about your mother, but I'm going to make some stuff up. And so you keep them separate, but I feel confident enough that everything that is in there, it's nothing that would offend him because it is all information that was in the public domain or in her unpublished autobiography.
I think the same for me, especially with Ravenna. So we have the Medici, we have a Pope, we have Sforza, the Duke of Milan, we have the Kingdom of Naples. I mean, we have all these different historical figures. So I read a lot of letters, and I read a lot about them. And I understood their policies, their politics, their points of view. I even stumbled across Leonardo da Vinci's grocery list, learned he's a vegetarian, you know. So I think that there's enough of their personality and how they would have thought about a specific situation that I infused it with, even though I didn't know specifics about what they might have said, but I understood how they might have felt in that moment. And it is a historical fantasy, so I did take liberties, but I tried to bring as much of their personality into, from what was available and what I could infer into this text.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you ever, like, when you're with people or just in general, like, do you add your personality as well into it? Especially when writing about Hazel, she was a real person and, like, she did a lot of things in her life. Do you ever add things that you think?
I write fiction. That is my story. I'm sticking to it. That is what I will tell the judge. If you try to sue me because I took something you told me and I put it in a book, that it's a joke in my family. Don't say anything around RaShonda because she will put it in the book. Because I will. And so, yes, to answer your question. But I always change the names to protect the guilty.
I think I put a lot of my heart into every character, and so inevitably, every character of mine, actually, this is true, they're all some kind of artist. Before I was writing full-time, I was a greeting card designer and an illustrator, and so all of my characters, my main characters, have been artists, and I think I've given them that passion because I see the world that way. I like to create with my hands, and so I've always given them that kind of similarity to me.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm from the Women's Leadership Program at the George Washington University. Me and Sophia both are, and we're here tonight for our symposium. And so I'm so happy that I got to listen in on this talk. It was very engaging. And my question is particularly like surrounding to students and how, like kind of what your opinion, I guess, would be on how students should pursue like the type of questions they ask when it comes to these type of topics around like feminist literature, because I was just talking with a friend who's taking a class on like philosophy and like race and gender and like the discussions that they were having. So I was wondering, what would your take be on like the type of things that students, I guess, should be exploring as they're taking these classes?
The worst kind of question is the one that is not asked. And so I encourage students to just ask whatever is on their mind, whatever they want to know, whatever they've heard in taking that. A lot of times you see people that are like, okay, I'm scared to really talk about it. Yeah. You know, nobody is going to shoot down a question that you've got regarding the literature. So I just encourage you to just be vocal. Use your voice to ask questions, to seek more knowledge. And then what's going to happen is you're going to take that back and spread that knowledge. So people are more than welcoming to your questions.
I think I would just say read wildly from different points of view, different walks of life, different histories, time points, from different women who lived in fraught times and in different societies, countries, what have you. And one of the things is, as you start reading wildly and what they would have gone through in history, now, present, and even in the future, you find a common denominator. And we're all going through something. We're all going through, sometimes the same thing. And so when you read wildly, you develop this empathy and heart for all women. And you ask questions. How can we all be better together?
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm honored. So I love the fact that I guess the setting of the story is a character in the story that you're telling. And you mentioned that earlier specifically. And so Isabel, when you're going to countries like Egypt and Italy to like research, but I guess a question for both of you, like, how do you choose the setting of your next book? Is it like something that you like really, you love the culture, like you love Egyptology? So how do you choose like the country, the setting, like for your next one? And, do you have a sneak peek for your next one?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Okay. How do I choose? In college, I studied history and creative writing, and the two of them very much went hand in hand, and history really informed a lot of the things that I would write about later on. Specifically for this Renaissance, there's going to be 4 books, and they're going to each be in a different country with different characters and all standalone. And I try to pick things that arrest my imagination. So the next book is called Witch Dance, and it's set in Strasbourg in 1518 during the height of the dancing plague.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it is as creepy and weird, bizarre as you think it's going to be. And I wanted to pick things that just intrigued me. And the next one after that is going to be in Portugal, because again, all of these are set in the Renaissance, and they're all about women, and they're all about women who are talented. But unfortunately, in this time period, if you are remotely talented or curious, you got labeled a witch more often than not. And so each of these books centers a witch in a profession or career that historically belonged to a man. And so the first one, Ravenna, is a sculptress. The second one, she's a doctor. Third, she's an astronomer. And then the fourth one, she's a musician. And so that will clue me in on where I need to go next in my stories and how to build those settings to life, because I know in some way it's going to end up to be a character.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So for me, my next one is actually on Prohibition, and I discover it when I'm doing research, and I was fascinated to learn that women were the foundation for the moonshine and the bootleg industry.
Of course they were.
Women had a network of making, they made so much money for their families because the men, the judges, all of them underestimated them. And so women would get arrested for moonshine and bootleg, and the judge would throw it out and say, she's not, she's innocent because she's not smart enough to run this moonshine industry. And the women would go, you sure are right, sir. And go right on home. And so I was fascinated by that. That was the nugget that got it. And then I started discovering all these other things. So my settings takes me from New Orleans to Detroit to Chicago. And now I'm going to tie it into Tuscany. I don't know how, but.
I was like, are you working on your itinerary?
I'm sure they had moonshine in Tuscany.
Okay, you will be our last question.
Why did you guys decide to write books?
So for me, I wanted to get paid for making up these stories. Because my mother, my first real foray into writing came in the 5th grade. I did a What I Did on Summer Vacation essay. And I wrote how I grew up in Houston and how I grew up in the ghetto and was witness to drive-by shootings and elderly ladies getting mugged, and really just how difficult life was for me. And my teacher was so moved, she called my mother and said, is there anything I can do for you? And my mother said, ghetto. Drive-bys, what are you talking about? We live in a nice middle-class neighborhood. And my teacher said, why would you make that up? And I said, well, I went to summer camp, and this just sounded so much better. And it was at that point where my mother told me, if it comes out of my mouth, it's a lie. If I write it down, it's a story. And so I began just writing down stories all the time and then decided, okay, I need to try and make a living off of this because I actually love doing this.
I started the same thing, not quite same, but I started the same way. My parents are here, they can attest to this, but I was constantly writing little stories. And my mother likes to tell the story of how I would line up all of my stuffed animals and they all had a backstory and a personality, and they were different characters, and I would just start talking about all these different stuffed animals as if they had their whole little book, you know? And I've always loved to do it, and I feel very fortunate that I get to do it for a living.
Wow. Well, huge round of applause for our authors. And thank you all for so many wonderful questions. It was a great conversation. I've loved speaking to you all and hearing everything that you had to say.
You were so wonderful, Destinee. Thank you for leading the conversation. Thank you,
Thank you
Isabel
guys
and
so
RaShonda.
much. Thank you.
I am just here for 2 seconds to let you all know that we are doing a signing right next door in the Woodall Pavilion. So bring your books and any other questions you want to ask. I work here at the Library of Congress. I'm on a team called Literary Initiatives where we get to put together programs like this. So I hope you continue coming to our author programs. If you want to find out more about what we have coming up, sign up for the bookmarked blog on the Library of Congress website. And you know, we hope to see you again, and we'll hope to see you right next door in just a few minutes. So thank you again. Give it up for the best authors to have coffee with.